Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode. And today we are going to talk about thoughts and how to stop thinking negative thoughts. And this episode is also inspired by one of the comments I received earlier in one of the previous videos, one of the previous episodes. And when we talk about thoughts, we have to be very honest. You know, If dealing with negative thoughts was as easy as saying, just be positive, we'd all be floating on a cloud of happiness by now, right? So it's not easy, I totally understand. Because saying just be positive, that's not real life. Negative thoughts can be intrusive, persistent, and exhausting. And what's even more frustrating, right? Some days you go to some days, your go to method works like magic. If you have some method to get rid of your negative thoughts, some days it will work like magic, but other days it feels completely useless. So, in this episode, I want to approach this from a very real, non theoretical space because I've been there. You've probably been there, and most of us will be there again or have already been there. So instead of trying to find a one size fits all answer, let's understand why we think negatively and how to navigate it with flexibility and self awareness. I always try to understand the why first because that gives us more clarity. If you have a wound, and if you can understand the why it happened, what is the root cause, you can actually heal it and prevent it in the future as well, right? So let's first talk about why do we think negative thoughts? Because negative thoughts, they don't appear out of nowhere. It seems like they have been appearing out of nowhere, but it's not like that. Usually they don't appear out of nowhere. They're usually shaped by your childhood experiences, maybe conditioning, some kind of trauma, or maybe you have low self-worth, low self-esteem, societal expectations, some fear of rejection or fear of failure, which again can be traced back to your experiences, your past experiences. If you've grown up in an environment where love was conditional, criticism was constant, or you were told to always be perfect, your mind naturally learns to expect the worst, blame yourself, or, scan for danger, even when everything is okay. Sometimes it's not even trauma, it's a habit. Over time, we just develop neutral pathways that are used to running in circles of doubt, fear, and, what ifs. So that's the first layer, understanding that these thoughts are not you, they are patterns. They are because of something, right? They are leftovers from old wounds or mental habits. So it's a pattern, and patterns can be shifted. So I think this is this understanding why do we have these thoughts, understanding like tracing the root, and just this understanding can actually help you understand the cause, and also it helps you understand that you are not your thoughts. So it is also important to understand that you as a self is different from these thoughts, right? It gives you that um it creates that divide. You are not these thoughts, and that means you can also work around them, or maybe you can change them, right? Now, what to do when your usual strategy doesn't work? Here's the truth: no one says enough. No strategy works 100% of the time. The brain is dynamic, you know, the mood, the context, environment, sometimes your stress levels, sometimes your hormones, all of it plays a role. So if naming the thought helped you yesterday, there's a way. I talked about this in one of the previous episodes, where if you are thinking negative thoughts or feeling something negative, you can name it, right? You name it, then you address it, and then you try to find whether it is a residue from the past or is it a fresh feeling. And based on that, you deal with it, right? But what if naming is not helping you today? Maybe it helped you yesterday, but not today. It doesn't mean you are failing. It just means your mind needs a different kind of support. So let me walk you through a flexible toolbox. You can experiment and rotate based on what feels right. These are all the techniques that I'm going to share to deal with your negative thoughts. The number one technique is naming the thought. Sometimes if you're thinking something and you're not paying attention to it, it's like you're on autopilot and you're repeating certain affirmations to yourself, or you're repeating certain scenarios in your head. So once you name it, once you simply say, maybe let's say you've been having some kind of self doubt, right? So maybe simply saying, this is a self critical thought, or maybe this is my fear voice speaking. It's enough to separate you from the spiral. You are not suppressing it, you are acknowledging it without identifying it, right? It's like watching a train go by without getting on. So, for example, if let's say you want to start a new project, but you are having certain doubts, name it, right? If you give words to your thoughts, they actually lose power. And if you haven't tried it earlier, try it now. Give words to your thoughts. Don't let it be just be there. Even your feelings, give them names. And that's how they lose power. So, again, um, going back to the example, let's say you want to start a new project and you are having some sort of doubts. You can start by saying that I'm having these doubts. This is my fear voice speaking. If I do this, I fear that this might happen, right? And once you name it, you can ask, is this true? How do you do that? See, asking is very important. Whatever you ask for in life, your brain will actually start looking for the answers. Your brain will not tell you this is not the right answer. If you ask yourself, why will I fail? Your brain will give you 10,000 or maybe many answers, just to prove that, okay, yes, you will fail, these are the reasons. If you ask yourself, why will I succeed, it will give you many more answers. It will start giving you reasons why you will succeed. So your questions are actually important. Your questions shape your stories you keep telling yourself. So once you name this thought, ask, is this true? You have to invalidate it. How can you do that? By asking questions. And this one actually sounds simple, but it's powerful. Try it. If you have a thought like, I always mess things up, pause and ask yourself, is that actually true? Have there been times when I did not mess things up? And then you will come up with many proofs, right? You will come up with many answers. You will come up with examples of times when you did not mess things up. That means this thought, I always mess things up, is not true, right? You have to start invalidating these thoughts by asking the right questions. And you will realize there are moments where you succeeded, you showed up, you helped someone, or you grew from a failure. And this helps you deconstruct generalizations and start seeing reality. These negative thoughts are usually generalizations. I always fail. I always mess things up, right? These are generalization. If you look at, like, if you start asking these questions, is it actually true? There have been times where I did not mess things up, where I did not fail. So how can you say I always do this, right? Once you start asking, you deconstruct these generalizations. And then you can start journaling for clarity. Sometimes your thoughts need a landing space. Open a notebook and pour them out. Just write it all down. Let the mess spill. You don't need to write neatly or find answers. Just give your thoughts a place to breathe. And once you see them on paper, they lose some of their power. Trust me. And then you can start rewiring through repetition. I hope you know your brain learns through repetition, and that's where affirmations or positive beliefs come in. Not the fake kind, like I'm amazing, when you are actually feeling broken, but the gentle, grounded ones. For example, I'm doing the best I can today. Yes, I'm feeling bad, but this feeling will pass. Yes, I'm not feeling good today, but I have survived hard days before, right? You don't have to start with very strong affirmations. Start with gentle, grounded affirmations and repeat them consistently, not to fake positivity, but to offer the brain a new route to take. And then find your sense of agency. I recently came across this subject, sense of agency. I'll maybe create another episode on this. But if you're somebody who knows what it is, when your mind is spiraling, you need to ask, what's one thing I can control right now? Sense of agency actually lets you know that you always have a choice in every moment. So ask yourself, okay, I'm having these negative thoughts, but what's one thing I can control right now? It could be making your bed. It could be, washing your face, going for a walk, maybe texting a friend, talking to someone. And this brings back a sense of power, a sense of agency that you have choice in the present moment. Negative thoughts often feel like we're drowning. We don't have a choice. Taking small action is like holding on to a life jacket, right? And I talk about value compass a lot. Check your values because mostly negative thoughts are louder when you're out of alignment with your values. Let's say you value creativity, but you haven't created anything in weeks, or you value honesty, but you've been avoiding a conversation with someone. That inner dissonance breeds frustration and negative self-talk because you're not being true to your values. When you reconnect with your core values and take even one aligned step, your mind finds grounding again. And if you're unsure how to find your values, I've made a full episode on that. It's in the playlist, and the link to that playlist I've shared in the description. You can always check that. And you also need to look at your lifestyle. Sometimes it's lack of sleep, maybe poor diet, excessive screen time, no movement. It all adds up. Sometimes, if you're thinking negatively, sometimes what we call negative thinking is just our brain being tired, overfed with dopamine, and undernourished in real connection. So ask yourself gently, am I sleeping enough? Am I moving my body? Am I spending too much time online? Right? Change doesn't have to be drastic. Am I eating right? Start with one small shift. And then mindfulness and breathing. Some thoughts don't need answers, they just need space. When you sit with your breath or do a body scan, quick body scan, you create that space. You're telling your nervous system it's safe now. The thought might still be there, but you've created distance. So you can try this method also. Inhale slowly, hold for some seconds, exhale gently. Say to yourself, this is just a thought. I'm here in this moment. And I know what it's like to wake up and feel like your brain is working against you. But let me say this, you're not broken, your thoughts are not facts, and your mind can heal. Healing doesn't happen in one perfect moment. It happens through thousands of small ones where you pause, notice, and choose again. Some days, naming your thought will work. Other days, journaling or breathing will help. And you also need to be compassionate. You need to have self compassion because healing doesn't happen in one perfect moment. It happens through thousands of small ones where you pause, notice, and choose again. Some days, like I said, naming your thought will work. Some other days, journaling will work. Some days, nothing will help, and you'll just need to rest and try again tomorrow. And that's not failure, that's flexibility, that's resilience, right? So, your challenge this week, this weekend, or for the coming maybe 7 days, you can give yourself this challenge. Pick two strategies from this episode and try them out the next time your thoughts spiral. Pick just two strategies, or maybe if you want, you can pick one also. Let yourself be curious, be gentle. You're not trying to defeat your mind. You don't have to fight with your mind. You have to let it befriend you. You have to be friends with your mind, right? You are not trying to defeat your mind, you're learning to partner with it. And remember, this is a journey, and you're doing better than you think.